Welcome, friends, to another segment of Inspire Our Movement. Incredibly glad that you're tuning in to another segment. It's something that we definitely don't take lightly, the opportunity to engage with you again, and this is really what it's for. It's all for you. It's our way of reaching out to the community, to getting feedback from you, and hopefully giving you the presence of folks that are so incredibly interesting and so passionate with their vocation, what they're doing, that really truly inspire us to be a better version of ourselves. With that in mind, today we continue on our series on purpose, and we have Dr. Thomas Bryer, which is faculty at the University of Central Florida, with us today, who has a load of information to share with us on all things school public administration and beyond. Tune in. So today we're joined by Dr. Thomas Bryer from the University of Central Florida. He's a full professor with the School of Public Administration, and without further ado, I'm going to roll over to him so that he can introduce himself to you and let you know a little bit about himself. Dr. Bryer?
Well, thank you, Caesar, first for the invitation. The organization that you've created, Inspire Movement, is, I think, itself very inspirational. The videos that you're filming with, the interviews you are conducting with leaders in the community, individuals who have given so much of themselves to benefit others is something that I'm certain will motivate and inspire anybody who watches this, not only in Central Florida, but beyond. And so congratulations on the launch of this great organization. So my name is Tom Bryer. I'm a professor in the School of Public Administration at the University of Central Florida. I've been here since 2007, fresh from my PhD in public administration at the University of Southern California. I'm a New Yorker originally. From New York, I went to Washington, D.C., did my undergraduate bachelor's in political science, my master's in public administration, all working in the D.C., mostly with federal government-oriented projects. Did a few years at a nonprofit, which no longer exists, unfortunately, called the Council for Excellence in Government. The council fell victim to the recession of 2008, unfortunately. But it was there that I developed a taste for public service. And really, we can date the story back even further than that if we wanted to. But for purposes here, we'll say it really started there. I really got a sense of giving back, the importance of government workers, the importance of civil servants, individuals who work behind the scenes that are the unsung heroes of what makes our communities as great as they are. Even though I worked in D.C., worked in this nonprofit, did my bachelor's and master's in D.C., I wanted to really get a hold of grassroots activity and grassroots organizations, really touching the heartbeat, if you will, of our communities. And that's why I left Washington to do my PhD at the University of Southern California. That's where I had my sort of next epiphany as to where I thought I wanted to go in my career. Having worked under the great supervision of Professor Terry Cooper, who remains a great mentor to me today. He just retired this past year. But it was through him and with him that I got my hands very dirty in some ways doing what is my passion, community engaged scholarship. And that's something I brought here to Central Florida, to UCF in 2007. I came here knowing at that time in 2007, 2008 that UCF was a growing university, that Central Florida and Orlando City were growing regions and growing cities. I saw an opportunity with growth, with diversification, an opportunity to really contribute my skill set and what expertise I had and was still in the process of developing. So I chose not to go to, for instance, State University, New York, Albany for an academic post. I didn't go to Maryland for an academic post. I didn't go to Massachusetts for an academic post. All places I was considering. I came to Florida because I saw an opportunity to have the biggest impact through the work I was doing.
Good for us UCF alumni that you did. So you've mentioned obviously being a full professor with the School of Public Administration here at UCF. We find ourselves today at the UCF Creative Village. This is our backdrop for today's segment. We are in the Dr. Phillips Academic Commons building as we film this segment. And so your ties to the university and the School of Public Administration run deep. There are, I'm sure, a lot of concerned citizens or possibly prospective students that may not be really well aware of what a public administrator actually does. Can you maybe just give us, in layman's terms, what the function of a public administrator actually is, and why they are so pivotal and critically important to the functioning of a society?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first thing that comes to mind when someone asks me this question is a joke that one of my professors at George Washington University told me during my MPA studies. The role of the MPA is to regulate the MBA. But right, that works. In a way, it makes sense. But really, if to be very serious about the role of public administrators, I would challenge those who are watching to really think about the streets that they're driving on, to think about the food that they're cooking and preparing and buying at the grocery store, to think about the cultural and arts events that they enjoy in their communities. All of these are examples of our daily life routines that are affected by individuals working for government, professional, full-time civil servants. We're filming this, Caesar, at a time when coronavirus is rampant, and many of us are scared. A lot of things and events are being canceled. As we think about coronavirus, we can again think about the role of public administrators. You know, we might look to the President of the United States or the governor of the state or the mayor of the city for some leadership and some hope and some optimism around our ability to get through this trial here. But at the end of the day, it's those who are in the background, those scientists at the Centers for Disease Control, the teachers who are in the schools who are helping to make sure the children are practicing proper sanitation, the individuals who are working in hospitals, the county EMTs who are public administrators, they're professional civil servants working for relatively little pay, sacrificing a great deal and in many ways putting themselves at risk when we think about something like coronavirus. These are the kinds of people that we need to think about when we think about public administrators. They are the backbone of our society. They are the backbone of our democracy. They get a bad rap in the press. Politicians love to beat up on public administrators. Ronald Reagan infamously talked about how government is never the solution to problems, government is the problem, and that gets a lot of applause. That gets a lot of people saying, yeah, I hate paying taxes, yeah, I hate doing these things, I hate the regulation, but at the end of the day, we've got to look at the roads, we've got to look at the food we're putting on our table and how it's inspected. We have to look at the drugs that we use to take care of our illnesses, because public administrators look after us in making sure those things are safe and secure and will not harm us, or at least they won't harm us in a way we don't anticipate. This is the role of public administration in society.
Thank you, Dr. Bryer, for that explanation. In studying your CV or your curriculum vitae, it's come to my attention that one of your focal points from a research perspective delves a lot into community partnerships, community engagements. Can you elaborate a little bit on what public participation or community engagement actually looks like? I think it's somewhat intuitive for most, but if you could elaborate on that a little bit, and why, when that isn't happening, when you don't have community engagement and civic participation actually happening in society, why is that a detriment to our society? How are we actually losing?
So there are, I think, a couple questions embedded within that. One is on citizen participation, community engagement generally. The other is the role of someone like me and the role of institutions of higher education in promoting civic involvement. On the first, I would refer to the former United States Senator and Florida Governor, Bob Graham. He wrote a book a few years ago called America, the Owner's Manual. In the book, I think there are two editions of it out now. The first one, though, was shaped and sized about the size of an automobile manual. You can put it in your glove box. It was written for the citizen, communicating what you need to do in order to be an informed, active, engaged member of your community. If you have a passion, if you have something you want to advocate for, here's what you need to do to be informed, to mobilize those around you, to educate those around you, and to persuade those who are in positions who can do something about your passion. I had the opportunity soon after he wrote the book and published the book to visit him and conduct an interview with him. I was in your seat, he was in my seat, and because I really wanted to know what was the background of the book. You know, this was a former member of the Florida House of Representatives. He was a former governor of the state, a former United States senator. He threw his hat in the presidential ring at one point in time. Why was he writing a book about how, you know, some random person in the community might do a better job advocating for themselves? And the way he framed it, which I still think about as really clever, is to compare the state of society and the importance of citizen engagement to someone who is learning to become a pilot, an airplane pilot. Now, I'm not a pilot, so I'm going to trust him that this is a good analogy. But I guess when you take your flight test before you get your pilot's license, you have to put the plane into stall and start a free fall and correct and show that you can get the engines going again and get back in the sky or land safely, whatever the case might be.
Trial by fire,
so
to speak.
Very much, right? Can you imagine that with a driving test? I mean, you cut the brakes. You know, that's kind of the equivalent, right? So what he suggested was that we as a society are very much like that pilot. The engines have been cut. We're in a free fall in the state of our civics, and if we do nothing about it, then we're going to crash, and there are going to be some harmful consequences for society. And he wrote that, I think, 2000 and, don't quote me on this, please, but 2009, roughly, I think, is when the first edition came out. Since that time, we're now 2020, and we can see the pressures of various forces in society pushing on citizens and their capacity and ability to be meaningfully engaged with each other and meaningfully engaged with our institutions of government and our nonprofit institutions and others. First and foremost among those would be the very fast rise of social media and other online facilitated communications, which prevent meaningful interaction. They prevent coming together in community, in some shared space and shared understanding to develop shared values, right? This continues to be a threat for us. So as we think about the importance of citizen engagement, and this can segue into maybe what I interpreted as a second part or embedded part of your question, the role of higher ed institutions. We need only look at the space behind us. We're in the Dr. Phillips Academic Commons, located in the community of Paramore in the city of Orlando. Paramore is a historically impoverished community where very few of youth who grow up in Paramore go on to higher education. There is some civic activity that's happening over here. A lot of it is not checked, a lot of it is not documented, but it's not developed in a way and it's not embedded within the rest of society in a way that will allow all communities and all people to be lifted up in the way that we need them to be. So we might have some who are disappointed, angry, anxious about issues in the Paramore community, but they're not linking up with those who are in the other side of town, right? How do we bring these two together? And this is part of the mission for UCF and the School of Public Administration, and part of my job, and why I was really an early advocate. In fact, I've had people tell me that I'm the one to blame for School of Public Admin moving downtown. We were not always in the list to be down here. But I made a pitch. I gave a speech, a lecture that the university provost attended, and I had a bit of theatrics around the lecture, wearing my academic regalia to begin and saying, you know, this is how we appear to the people outside of the halls of academia. We can do better. So bit by bit during my lecture, I disrobed. I had stuff underneath, but I disrobed in a way that I hope was symbolic. Provost bought it, I guess, and here we are downtown, and we have an opportunity to help strengthen the civic fabric of the whole of the downtown area.
Absolutely awesome. So that's a great segue for my next question. Another one of your focus areas that I picked up on is the aspect which you've already alluded to of university/community partnerships. Can you give us some examples of such partnering schemes in which you've been involved with, and maybe allude to how the university or academic institutions, not only here in Orlando, but all across the country, can actually help fill some of those societal gaps that may exist, such as, in some respects, the gap that you've already mentioned with the Paramore community, which is so close by to where we are right now.
Right.
So can you maybe expound a little bit on something that you may have been a participant of in the past?
Sure, and not only around the country, but around the world. 2 years ago, I implemented a research project which resulted in a book published last year called Promoting Civic Health Through University Community Partnerships, Global Contexts and Experiences. It was a book I co-authored with a colleague at the University of Chile and with one of my PhD students here at UCF. And we wrote the book using case studies. I had the opportunity, I took a 1-year sabbatical and I traveled around different parts of the world conducting in-depth case studies of universities to learn more about how they saw their role in promoting citizenship and civic engagement within their community, within their society, and what were the barriers, what were the challenges that maybe prevented them from doing it differently, doing it better, having a bigger impact, and so on. So in that research, I looked at not only universities here in the United States, UCF, Arizona State University, are the two most prominent. University of Baltimore would be another one, an inner city kind of university in city of Baltimore, Maryland. But internationally, we included University of Chile, University of Tyumen in the Siberian region of Russia, Kaunas University of Technology in Lithuania, Tallinn Technological University in Estonia, Edge Hill University in the United Kingdom, and I know I'm missing some in my mind right now, and so if any of them are watching this someday, I'm sorry. But what we learned was that universities around the world have different levels of ambition. So we can imagine, the folks in Russia might have a different idea of what an active citizen ought to look like in Russian society compared to American society, right? And it's not just U.S. and Russia, it's all around. Right? We all have our different socio-historical contexts and backgrounds, experiences, institutional designs, funding mechanisms, all of these. So there's a lot of variation. But common across all of these universities was a general sense that there can be and often is a disconnect between the rhetoric that is used by leaders in universities about the importance of engaging with community and partnering with community and promoting civic health, and the incentive systems that maybe propelled or compelled faculty and students and staff to actually embed and engage with community in different ways. And so it's part of my mission, and has been for several years, to try to bridge that gap, to make sure that there is not only the empty rhetoric, which is what communities often hear, we're going to go into Paramore and we're going to help you. Well, that's bad. They hear that all the time. They don't trust us. Communities generally don't trust universities, because we go in, we conduct our survey, we conduct our interviews, we run our data analysis, we get published in an academic journal that very few people read, unless our students are reading it by force. Otherwise, it doesn't affect the community one bit, and oftentimes the communities don't hear from us again. This is something that I've been working my whole career to change, dating to my PhD study days at Southern California, throughout my time here since 2007 at UCF. I'll just give one example of a project I'm engaged in right now that I think is a good example. It's an interdisciplinary project funded by the National Science Foundation. I think $2.5 million over 3 years. I have colleagues in computer science and civil engineering who developed a low-cost air quality sensor and cyber secure low-cost air quality sensor. The idea is two things. One, there are, if we just look at Orange County, Florida right now, there are 2 federally funded and mandated air quality sensor systems in place. Each of those costs about $20,000 to build and maintain, and they collect all kinds of good data, good information, but there are only 2, and they're not really placed in particularly lower income areas, right? And so what my colleagues in engineering and computer science have done was develop a cyber secure system that cannot be hacked, unlike other models that they've discovered, cannot be hacked, that costs $500, not $20,000, and can collect some core critical data about the quality of air. So our plan is to deploy 100 of these in neighborhoods around the city of Orlando. And my job, along with one of my colleagues in the School of Public Administration, Kelly Stevens, is to educate the citizens about how to access the data, use the data, near real-time data, not delayed, near real-time data, and advocate to their elected and other government officials to change policy or practice depending on what they learn about the quality of air that they breathe on a day-to-day basis. This is something that will keep us in the community for a few years. It's something that will directly empower citizens through the research process. It's something that we are not saying we are here to collect your data, run the statistics, and then go to the elected officials on your behalf. We're saying, no, we are going to give you the data. We're going to arm you. And then you will be prepared to go in a similar way to what Bob Graham suggested in his book, America, the Owner's Manual. You will have the data, you will know how to use the data, and you will have the skill set needed to persuade others in your community and government officials to do something with it that might affect your overall quality of life, not only for you, but for your children, ranging from the small decisions of should I open the window today, to should I allow my kid to play in the park today, to something more substantive around broader air quality regulations that are put in place, particularly around highway constructions or other building construction. And now is certainly a time where we see a lot of that building happening in the downtown area.
So, and again, studying your CV and just past knowledge, really. I think we may have even had a conversation about this at some point or the other. Mm-hmm. One of your earlier case studies was of a community center.
Yeah.
A community center very near and dear to my heart. It's a joint facility between the Lake Nona YMCA mm-hmm. and the OCPS North Lake Park Elementary School. Mm-hmm. It's a place where I have just recently completed, maybe about a week ago, my last basketball coaching experience.
Okay.
The most
Not the
recent,
last.
I think. Not
okay.
the last, but the most recent, right? And it's a dozen years, at least, that I've been doing this. My wife is about to start anew for, I think, her 6th or 7th year coaching mm-hmm. soccer. Mm. This community center, I can advocate for this concept, mm-hmm. Without end, longer than what this video is going to span. But you being so intimately involved at the beginnings of it, can you please share a little bit on, if not this specific place, community center, why you are such an advocate of this type of center,
yeah.
and how it can really become sort of like a societal mesh, mm-hmm. a meeting ground for churches, for all sorts of city functions. It's a polling facility when
yeah.
it's time to vote. There's a whole host of different things going on there, and this is just one prime example only because mm-hmm. it's near and dear to my heart, but I'm sure you may have other examples.
Yeah, no, it's a great example, the Lake Nona Y and North Lake Park Elementary School. I was brought in by the Y, I don't remember years anymore, but I was brought in to evaluate, and because they wanted to know, does this co-located Y and school lead to superior academic and other student outcomes compared to elementary schools of similar demographic who or that don't enjoy this kind of co-located facility. And to the best of my memory and knowledge, that was at the time the only co-located Y and elementary school. And the initial design was itself very innovative. There was a single entrance with a single desk, and if you wanted to go to the Y, you turned right. If you wanted to go to the school, you turned left. The school office was also off to the right. I think maybe that model has changed a little bit now for security concerns, but at the time the idea was, and it still largely remains, that this building would become this space would become a community center. And if my memory serves me, with North Lake Park, the school and the Y was, that whole community was designed around the center, right? The houses, so not like an urban environment where you might want to build a new school or retrofit a school or something like that. This community was designed specifically with the idea that there should be a center of some kind that would bring people together from across the neighborhoods, across the houses, a gathering place for shared space, shared education, before school, after school, during school, and shared fitness opportunity. Yep. My research showed that compared to other elementary schools of similar demographic, that there were superior academic achievements. But of course, that led to the question of what happens if we don't have a big plot of land and we're developing a new whole community like North Lake Park. More likely than not, what you find in practice elsewhere is a retrofit of a school, right? Mm-hmm. For a community, an established community that wants to create a new kind of co-located space. And that's where we can see deeper forms and versions of the community school model implemented. For the past few years, we've had here at UCF a legislatively funded Center for Community Schools. Dr. Amy Ellis is the director of this center. They launched their idea, building on work of others around the country, with Pine Hills, and they made that the first full-service, wraparound service community school in the state of Florida. Going beyond the North Lake model, North Lake is a great model. This was said, okay, we're going to put health services, job training service. Maybe North Lake has some of that too. It's been a while since I've checked in, but
I don't think it's that expansive. But
yeah.
I'm familiar with Pine Hills as well, dating back to my time with
sure
your department.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. So that was a great project. They actually built a new campus for the school, and they built it around this community school model. These kinds of ideas are so critical for the reasons that I talked about before of bringing people together, building cohesive community, having that physical coexistence, not just an online coexistence. And I can give other examples. If we had another 5 hours of tape to roll, I could go on about communities that fail because we don't have this this physical space where we come together, where the distrust is rampant in the community, where a gated community is pitted against gated communities, pitted against working class Hispanic community, and you just have messiness in that space, right? Lack of trust through and through. With the community school model, we can correct for this. We can help adjust this, and we can give some opportunity for students in those schools to see beyond what their limited view of what their potential might have been, right? Just one example, and I love this in particular. On my desk in my office, I've got a framed notepad paper that was given to me. I conducted a service learning course with Pine Hills. It's Evans High School in Pine Hills. Conducted a service learning class, bringing my grad students together, my MPA students together with students at Evans High School. And they co-designed and co-implemented a community needs assessment to help design this future community school before it actually launched. And I had the students on both sides write journals, and there's one high school girl wrote an unsolicited note at the end of her journal, which I tore out. That's on my desk. But it says something to the effect of, Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the community school focus group process. You have, I should know this by memory because I've recited it so many times, but you have seen us in a way that very few have done. You have given us an opportunity to express our voice that very few have allowed us to do. And you have walked our halls, and you have helped us. You have come in and you have seen how our brothers and sisters fall and the challenges that we face in our life. So thank you, UCF, for giving us the opportunity, right? And she wrote it much more poetically and meaningfully than I paraphrased. But the point was clear, that if with schools like this, with the partnership with university in schools like this, we can change lives in so many meaningful ways. And that letter sitting on my desk is something that keeps me moving every day. If I ever feel doubt about my role and what I'm trying to do and what's guiding my actions on a day-to-day basis in this work, I just look at that letter and it brings me right back in.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. One other distinction or distinctions that I think you've alluded to possibly vaguely, but I'd like for you to just inform us a little bit for some of us that may not be aware of all things academia. I know that you are a Fulbright Core Scholar Award recipient and a Fulbright Specialist. Can you translate that for some of us layman folk and how that has opened up some doorways professionally for you?
Sure, absolutely. Well, the Fulbright program is a program run by the United States State Department. It is named for the late Senator Fulbright. John, I think is his name. I should know that. But Senator Fulbright, who was chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, if I have my history correct. But he was a big champion for diplomacy of all kinds, in all shapes and forms. And so Fulbright is a mechanism to facilitate academic exchange and diplomacy outside of the normal sort of state government to government interactions. So it provides funding for professors and students and others in society, artists and others involved in culture and business, to go to another country for a period of 4 months, 9 months or more to participate in research or teaching or consultation work and contribute to the well-being of that society in that process and to build stronger bilateral relationships when possible. And it also provides funding for folks from other countries to come to the United States for a similar purpose. So I received a Fulbright Core Scholarship Award to spend, it was a Flex Award, which meant I had to spend 6 months in Lithuania, in this case researching citizen participation in municipal government in this post-Soviet society. And 6 months over 3 years. So 2 months every autumn I was living in Lithuania, and then some summers beyond that on my own, living and working in Lithuania. A tremendous experience. And since that was from 2013 through 15, 3 years. And then in addition to that, as I wrapped that up, I joined what's called the Fulbright Specialist roster, or the Fulbright Specialist Program, which puts me on a list for a period of 3 years to basically be on call for any university, government, nonprofit organization virtually anywhere in the world who wants to bring me in for a minimum of 2 weeks to do some consultation, teaching, research activities, and so on. And through that program, I spent a wonderful 2 weeks at the University of Tyumen in Tyumen, Russia, in the Siberian region of Russia, which was my first time in Russia. And while there, I also gave lectures at Ural Federal University in Yekaterinburg, Russia. So again, really broadening my horizon. What a life-changing opportunity in so many ways. I met a lot of great people. I continue to have stellar relationships that have benefited not only me personally, but the whole of the University of Central Florida and the School of Public Administration. And I would go beyond that to say the whole of the city of Orlando and the region of Central Florida with some of the activities that we've facilitated. And on a personal level, one of the things that drew me to Lithuania to begin with was the fact that my ancestry is Lithuanian on both sides of my family. And this gave me the opportunity to explore my ancestral homeland. My grandmother left in 1938. When she was 13 years old, she was sent on her own to live with an aunt in New York. But her father remained in Lithuania, and her father had before she left, remarried another woman, and they had additional children. But I never dreamed in my life that I would meet my remaining family, or part of my remaining family there. But I did. And in November of 2015, in the last days, really, of my Fulbright experience there, I tracked down through Ancestry.com some documents that showed the ship manifest for my grandmother, and she wrote the name of the small farming village where she was born. So I went out there with one of my colleagues at Kaunas University of Technology. It's a very small farming village, maybe 3-4 houses in a farming area. And we asked somebody who happened to be outside, "Do you know this last name, Ginolavicius?" And they said, yeah, it's this house right over here. So we went to that house over there, and then we said, "Ginolavicius? Barbora Ginolavicius? Yeah. This is your cousin." "Oh my God, cousin. Well, I was invited the next week back, and they brought the whole family. It was a family reunion, and the size of my family more than doubled with that. And that continues. So life-changing experience personally and professionally.
Hey, so I think that's a good lead into my next couple of questions, Dr. Bryer, and they do delve into your Lithuanian experience. Mm-hmm. I understand that the University of Central Florida and Kaunas University of Technology have now a partnering agreement.
We do. Whereby
the School of Public Administration is facilitating a nonprofit management degree, as far as I understand. Mm-hmm. And KTU is offering up a public administration degree.
Yep.
Can you share a little bit about how that came to be? And it is a two-part question, because I know there's also another landmark agreement. Mm-hmm. I believe it's Erasmus. Yeah. I could be mispronouncing that. Can you expound on both of those arrangements and partnerships, and just anything you feel? And I'd like to also get a take from the student perspective, both the student abroad and the student here at UCF, what you guys have to look forward to should you want to consider this dual program.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for the question and the opportunity to give more information about this program. And these programs both are part of my, I could leave UCF tomorrow and I would have a fixed legacy and be very happy, because these are both path-breaking programs, first ever kinds of programs for UCF. The Erasmus Plus exchange program is an exchange program opportunity for students to go for one semester at a time to swap to different universities, and for faculty and staff for maybe 1 week at a time to swap for teaching or professional development. The European Commission, up until a couple of years ago, only allowed this exchange to happen between European institutions. Then they changed the rule, and they allowed European institutions to work with and partner with American institutions, along with some others. And so we worked hard. It took, since this was brand new, it took almost 2 years for our lawyers to work through and get the job done. But we got that job done with good persistence. And the same with his dual degree program. It took a long time, a few years, to work it out. But the pitch basically is 4 years, 2 countries, 2 degrees, same tuition. So a bachelor's in nonprofit management from UCF and a bachelor's in public administration from Kaunas University of Technology, with 1 semester spent in each place as a cohort. So you have the students studying together, either virtually or together physically for 2 years, building those cross-country, cross-national relationships. Really path-breaking project. Very excited about it, and it's a deal that really cannot be beat financially or academically. It provides so much opportunity for travel and exposure to different culture, and to really build the CV, build a resume in some very unique ways.
Fantastic. So I'd like to transition into an incident that happened on June of 2016, which is the a Pulse nightclub shooting here in Orlando. I know that with UCF research team, you were part of a research team that was looking at assessing the public official performance during the crisis.
Yeah.
I'd like for you to spend some time sharing with us some of the findings of that research team analysis, and the many ways in which these public administrators were in fact basically acting heroically in the midst of a crisis, not only easing pain and suffering, but just allowing folks to find ways to cope with the after effect.
Sure. Yeah, and this was clearly a tragedy for the community. It was at the time the largest mass shooting in American history, which unfortunately that record did not stand very long before there was a mass shooting in Las Vegas, which took even more lives. But it created, for us here in Orlando, I guess there are two things that primarily happened that it showed importantly. One, to your question, it showed the we don't want to say heroics because I don't think they would like that word, but it showed the empathy and it showed the commitment and it showed the sacrifice and the willingness to sacrifice of public administrators in the city of Orlando, as well as others in the community, in response to the shooting. And second, it showed the strength of the community itself and its ability to come together in a trying time, particularly when there was a risk of outside forces coming in to try to disrupt and break the community cohesion, given the nature of the demographic that was targeted. The LGBTQ community and the Latino community were targeted, and this opened, particularly on the LGBTQ side, it opened a door to potential outsiders coming into the community and just spreading hate rather than the love and the compassion that was so necessary at the time and that actually dominated the day, happily. But what we learned, so cities are not, and have not been, increasingly they are becoming more, unfortunately, as a grim reality of modern life. But traditionally they are not prepared to deal with mass casualty events like this.
Right.
And so City of Orlando had some preparation in place for emergencies. We prepare, and the city officials, along with county officials and state officials and federal officials, prepare for other disasters like hurricanes and things that we can sort of predict or anticipate might happen, and with some variation. But nobody really drilled or simulated for a mass shooting of this scale. So they were not prepared in terms that they didn't have a playbook to follow. So they sort of had to improvise in the minutes, the hours, the days, the weeks, the months, now the years after the shooting, to respond in a way that was helpful for the community to heal, helpful and supportive of the victims and the victims' families, and they did it successfully. And one of the reasons that we learned in our research process, and we were funded by the City of Orlando because they wanted to help tell their story. They recognized that they, as a city, did not have the benefit of a playbook. Even though there were others in communities and cities around the country that offered guidance and tips and suggestions, and including the FBI, City of Boston, that had the Boston Marathon bombing not long before. They provided some guidance, some assistance, but it wasn't really what they needed at the time. So the city of Orlando wanted to construct basically a guidebook, if not a how-to manual, to assist other cities that inevitably would face this kind of situation. And what we learned was that the leadership matters, communication matters, the strength of connection within the public service matters. The fact that an individual who had responsibility for strategic partnerships for the city could be trusted to step up and lead the operations, the setup and operations of the Family Assistance Center and the Family Reunification Center was something that I don't know that many cities would be able to be prepared to say, okay, you do it. But you do it. We trust you because we know you, we've worked with you, we have good relationships. So having that strong culture, that strong family culture in the city environment proved to be very helpful. What helped in that culture development was the fact that Mayor Dyer, Buddy Dyer, City of Orlando, had been in office for many years at that time and is still in office. And a lot of his staff have been with him the whole time. So they've had years to develop these close relationships. A lot of cities don't have that luxury. And so we asked as a team, what would happen if this occurred in a city where they've just elected a new mayor and they don't have that institutional backing. There's no culture of trust within the operating procedures yet. It's an open question, and then cities will respond differently. But we saw building that as essential. The other thing that we saw as essential was building the strong relationship between city and community, to have that trust between groups and organizations, particularly representing different demographics in the community, to make sure they have the trust of city officials and city officials have the trust of them. Without that, probably that there would not have been such a successful coming together of the community. When the community said we want to have a memorial at Lake Eola, cities said, okay, we trust you to do it. We'll provide police support and security. We'll step back. We won't plan a thing. We'll support you in those efforts. When city was thinking about a sort of unifying Boston Strong kind of slogan, the idea that City of Orlando had at first was overtaken by what community was saying. And they said, okay, community, you got it. This is your city. This is where we need to go. That trust with the community was essential. And we see that play out time and time again across areas of mass shooting and across other areas of social and economic distress. It's something that we vitally need in these days of the coronavirus. We need that trust between communities and governments, citizens and government. Without that, we're not going to be able to respond effectively. We need those relationships. We need to not be demonizing public service. We need to not be demonizing public administration, because that will only cause harm when we face these kinds of emergency situations.
We're all in this together.
Absolutely.
I can think of the 49 victims, and my immediate community was touched because we knew of one of the victims, but in a sense we were all victimized by the acts of that day, whether that was your kin or not. And I think it's incredibly telling of our city government here to look to UCF to kind of dig in, see what worked, what could be done better. Certainly hope that we don't have to repeat that here in the city. But those are things that unfortunately happen in many communities across the United States. But I'm certainly glad that public administrators were able to get their due credit for their role in handling that situation. So with this following question, Dr. Bryer, I'd like for us to give you an opportunity to delve into the topic of purpose. And starting this series, as we call it, on purpose, given, I guess, my own midlife crisis, I think I've struggled with that notion of what am I doing today, and is that somehow very well in line with my passions, my skill set, my gifts, whichever way you want to come at this from. And I've always looked to you as an example of somebody that is very missional and very sort of a stalwart in what they're doing. They believe in it, and and your trajectory has been very consistent in that light. Can you maybe speak to, if not the aspiring student, maybe potentially looking at a school of public administration, and now we've done a tremendous marketing campaign via this segment to lure them in, or not, or possibly that midlife crisis person like me that may be struggling with their mission.
Yeah. That's ends with the toughest question of them all. So purpose and finding purpose and rediscovering purpose if it's lost, these are all really critical questions that we need to continually be asking ourselves. And I've had my moments, and I've been here at UCF since 2007, and I have at times vacillated in terms of whether I want to be here, whether or not working within the higher education establishment is where I can best give myself to help others in the way that I feel compelled to do. But time and again, I come back to the university, into higher education, to say this is absolutely my space. It's helped that I've been able over the years to have some flexibility to test and explore in different areas, whether it be my international work or in my community partnership work. Every day I come to the office, every day I engage with a different partner, a different segment of a community, a different public policy issue, a different citizenship challenge is a new day, a new challenge, something unique. And that has kept me driven and motivated. Along with that letter that I referred to earlier of that high school student at Evans High School. Grabbing those moments keeps me grounded in why I'm here to begin with and where I want to go in the future. So I guess I'll share the quote that I enjoy most when I think about why I do what I do. I first heard it stated a number of years ago by former Virginia Governor Douglas Wilder. I don't know who said it initially. I don't know where I was at the time, sitting somewhere, not in Florida. This was many years ago, but I was watching C-SPAN, great channel, by the way. You should watch C-SPAN to be informed citizen as to what's going on in government. What he said in giving a speech was, "Public service is rent for our time on earth." Public service is rent for our time on earth. And that really stuck with me. What does it mean? So we can think about what we consider in paying rent. Well, we pay rent, it keeps a roof over our head. We pay our mortgage, it keeps a roof over our head. We pay our lease on our car, we have access to what we need. We pay our rent in an economic sense, and we maintain some stability, right? And we have to apply this to the question of citizenship. Public service is rent for our time on earth. So long as we are sharing the same space, so long as we are living together, so long as we are affected by the same crises and catastrophes, whether it be a mass shooting or a coronavirus or anything else, or celebrating the things that we succeed at as a community together. All of that, it can be grounded in our mutual giving to support each other. And so rent for our time on earth. We are paying rent in order to live together. We are paying rent in order to succeed together. We are paying rent in order to, in some cases, survive together in the case of crises or emergencies. This is our obligation. This is what guides me. I'm here. I'm breathing the air. I'm driving on the roads. I don't know why I'm here. I'm not going to get deep into the metaphysical as to existence, but so long as I'm here, I know that I have to give back, and doing that through my profession, doing that through higher education is that space. And so my advice, if I give advice to someone who is in a midlife crisis or who is just trying to find their purpose, find their mission, find their passion, is to be introspective and to try new things, try new ideas, branch out, take risks with something new and interesting. And in fact, just last week I interviewed officially to be the next director of the School of Public Administration. I might not get it, and so if you're watching this and you hear me say this, and I'm not, I'm not the director when you watch this, then then you know that wasn't a successful undertaking, and that'll hurt a lot because that means my colleagues said, we don't want you to be the guy compared to some others, and so. But I'm taking a risk. I laid myself out there to say, this is my vision. This is where I think we need to go. This is, I think, how we need to build our relationship with the community and with each other. If you support me, great. If not, if that's not where you want to go, okay, that's fine too. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. But I hope you're with me. And you got to put yourself out there. Take that chance. Take that risk. Don't be afraid of failure. Because only through those failures and through those setbacks will we actually figure out where we're actually supposed to be.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So I'd like to give you this opportunity, Dr. Bryer, to do a plug, if you will, on any special projects. I know you have authored multiple books. I don't know if you like to share with us on any potential book that you may be working on at this very juncture, or just anything at all, any special project Dr. Bryer is currently working on that he wants to share with our viewers.
Yeah, well, thanks. So we talked about Pulse. I'm happy to say that my team and I, Stacy Zavataro, Sofia Prismakova, and Esteban Santos, are in the process of writing our findings in book format. We hope and expect that the book will be published by the 5-year mark of the Pulse shooting. So that's something that we can look forward to. And hopefully will be of service to communities and cities and students and others alike. Beyond that, as I said just a moment ago, my hat's in the ring to be the next school director. If I get that, then that will shape a good part of what I do over the next 5 years, and through that, hopefully shape how we as an institution engage in our broader community. So you'll just have to check back with me in maybe a couple of weeks only to see if that was successful, and we'll go from there.
Fair. So with that, Dr. Bryer, I would like to thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us and our viewers. It's been an incredible joy for me. We hadn't connected in a little bit of time. It was long overdue, too long. I wish you incredible success, not only with the director position, but beyond with the book and whatever other projects that you may have. And just continue being the light for not only folks here at UCF who are so fortunate to have folks like yourself advocating for them, but also with everything else that you have going on internationally and with the Orlando community. I certainly hope that New York and Maryland are no longer at play and that you are here for the long haul.
I hope so. Okay, thank you, Caesar.
So much, sir.
All right.
So thank you guys for joining us to this segment with Dr. Thomas Bryer. It's been an incredible pleasure. I hope that you have come across a lot of information that is useful to you. You know that we try to seek out the best, most qualified, most passionate people for you to be engaged with, and Dr. Thomas Bryer definitely did not disappoint. So we look forward to seeing you again for our next segment. Thank you so much for joining Inspire Our Movement, and we're so very honored that you tuned in for another segment. Thank you.